pressure to keep pace with infrastructure development is being identified by many as the major reason behind the current confrontation between the Lagos state government and those who find themselves at the receiving end of implementation and enforcement across the megacity. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people have lost property, running into millions, and in several instances, even public facilities such as schools, churches, and hospitals have not been spared. The state government insists that its decisions are only forged by a desire to ensure the safety of the residents through flood control and prevention of the environment. For the victims, however, nothing seems able to assuage their feeling of hurt and deprivation in a state where many of them claimed to contribute to development through payment of various forms of taxes. We are now being joined for the next conversation by Bukola Adebayo, a journalist and West Africa correspondent of Thomson Reuters Foundation. She will discuss the effects of forced demolitions on education in Lagos State, as well as progress across cities in Nigeria. Good morning, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning.
Now, very importantly, we had some victims of the demolitions. As a victim of the demolition, Honorable Ojo here yesterday, he spoke about schools, churches that were demolished, and also a 3-week-old baby that lost her life. But when we're talking about the wants of a megacity versus empathy towards its lowest citizens, for you, what stands out here as the critical issues with these demolitions?
I think, like I have been covering demolitions across Lagos City since 2016, so I've seen it in different forms and shapes. And what has stood out is not come with some human face. And besides that, there are global standards for, let's even leave the demolitions. Let's talk about the reason for the evictions. The evictions come before the demolition. The reason for eviction is because it's always for different reasons. Government wants to take over a place or an environment for different reasons. But there are global standards for evictions. There are global standards, and there are 3 of them. It's enough notice. If you are going to take over a place, you should give the people in public good. There should be enough notice to the people staying in that place. There should be, and in the process of notice, there's consultation. Then during that consultation, there's a discussion of resettlement. Then there's a discussion of compensation, meaning you resettle them to a place that they can pick up again. Then you compensate them for what they had on the land or the community or the infrastructure that is being taken over. It is well known all over the world. It has been practiced, it has been done without rancor in many countries. And that, for me, is what I hope comes out of this present outcry and protest against the demolitions in Makoko. It is time for us to start adopting the global standards of doing things if we want to say we're a mega city.
All right, I get your point, Bukola. And I saw the video that you did, inside the boat. I believe that was Makoko.
Yes, that's Makoko.
Because you were particular about the effect that this will have on the education of the kids.
Yes,
we all must be concerned. But then 2 important figures in Lagos State have made comment, the governor and the commissioner for information. 3 days ago, the governor spoke in Lagos and gave reasons, and he said that he's obliged, to do this. The commissioner, I believe, speaking on a television interview yesterday, also reiterated most of what the governor said, and hinted at the fact that the needful will be done. I hope, of course, that is not a cliche, but one key thing that the governor also drew attention to, which I would like your response on, is the allegation that he made that some NGOs are fueling the agitation, looking down on the plans of government in terms of resettlement and compensation, but then fueling agitations and confrontations, etc. Are you aware that NGOs, particularly that are funded outside of Nigeria, are into this thing?
I mean, with all due respect to the governor and the commissioner, I doubt if there has not been outcry protest from local NGOs, international NGOs. I doubt we will get the kind of response that we've had from the governor and we've had from the commissioner on this situation. I have worked internationally, locally as a journalist, and I've covered many situations. And I know that what the government mostly responds to is international pressure. During the NSAS protest, a lot of attention came when the international media started focusing on these issues. It's not a strategy, it's not a playbook. It's just what has been noticed. And internationally, Nigeria is not the only country with waterfront communities. I've been to the waterfront community in Gambia. I've seen the ones in other parts of West Africa. And we have seen government intervene in terms of infrastructure, in terms of schools, in terms of health facilities in those places. And there are agencies all over the world, the UN Habitat, for instance. They are set up to look at people that have been marginalized in countries all over the world. And they work with NGOs all over the world to intervene in those countries. So if the UN Habitat, which is currently mediating this process of resettlement and conversation that has happened as a result of the outcry from the international and the local NGOs, if they are the ones looking at it and saying, this is how evictions should happen, should we say that I don't want us to play down the impact of international organizations working with local authorities and say, oh, because they are objecting to what our plans, that means that they are being fueled. It's not just in Nigeria. We have governors that go to international conferences, sign to international treaties. They do. So why don't you want to adhere to that and go back and say, oh, you are fueling, you signed onto these treaties. You signed on through these policies and laws. You signed on to these human rights conditions, and you should be held onto it. And that's if local NGOs, and I doubt I've seen any protests in Nigeria frontlined by international NGOs. In fact, in most cases, they are usually reticent to lead that because they understand that it will be seen as coming as trying to upend the government. And no project is going to work in Nigeria without the government being supportive. And I'll give an example. Even in Makoko, international NGOs cannot go there and distribute things like maybe contraceptives without maybe permission from the local or the state Ministry of Health.
Books.
Or books, or the local Ministry of Education, if you see what I mean. They need that approval before they can go, or else they will be in contravention of the rules of engagement.
Now, we're talking about demolition. It's not just Makoko. It's several areas. Yesterday, I got messages about people being evicted and their homes being demolished. Even other areas that are not riverine areas across Lagos. But also, I do think that sometimes we put the cart before the horse in Nigeria. In your opinion, has the government done enough when it comes to urban housing and public housing? Because we have a lot of people living in informal housing. But when it comes to proper, public housing and urban houses, in your opinion, has the Lagos state government done enough?
The Lagos state government, they have many plans, and we recognize that the city is about 24 million people as at last probably official count from international and even local agencies and estimations. And we know that a city of this size is pressed for accommodation is always going to be a problem. And I would say that how you address that and put an human face to your decision. And you've talked about demolitions in other places. And I'll go back to Otodogbame. When Otodogbame was demolished, these were informal settlements. In demolishing that place, what has replaced the structure there? Are we saying that this is not a city for poor people? Are we saying that this is not a city where carpenters should be? Are we saying this is not a city for where plumbers should be? The people that will work on those urban housing estates that you are building, who are not earning enough wages to be able to live in a Atlantic city, for instance. And I would like to also say, in pursuing the sort of urban housing that we are looking at, we also have to be conscious of the economic situation of the country. In Lagos, what is the average salary of workers? Even if we are talking about people working in banks, are you able to afford some of the housing sort of projects coming up in Lagos? I have friends that have been looking for accommodation for 3 years now because they cannot, and they are working in good places, but the cost of renting in Lagos actually needs to be addressed. And I'm glad you brought this up because that is a conversation that has been muted in all of this.
Isn't that a concern in most urban cities and capital cities of the world?
Yes, I mean, we can flash back to, what is happening in New York, where the new mayor, Namdani, is saying we have to rein in on this accommodation problem.
If we're talking about, just going off of what you're saying, because this rent issue is a serious issue for me. But I was reading, the Guardian newspaper did a report last week saying that the increase in rent is now outpacing income. And in places like Lagos, people have experienced over 100% increase in rent. So I asked, much more than that. And I asked people, I said, because I know how much my rent has increased, how much has your rent increased? And people were telling me 100%, 125%.
Some people 400%.
I don't know a single person whose income has increased 100%. So where are we going? Because it's not just the poorest now. Even middle class people cannot afford homes.
If all of us here agree that rent in Lagos has increased by 20, 30%, 300%, 400%, somebody the other day was telling me in confidence that their rent had jumped from 1.5 million to 4.5 million. And they were being given 3 months to pay it, it's just pretty ridiculous. If you and I are complaining about that, what should people that have been evicted for Oworonshoki, Makoko, and these places, even Ebute Metta, what do you want? What is left for them? Where will they go? Literally, where is the next place they are going to go? And that is why some of them are sleeping in boats.
All right. Bukola, two more questions, quick ones, before we let you go because of time. One will be, we're talking demolitions, we're talking everything. Part of what the governor also mentioned, using the example of Okobaba, that people were moved from there, to Agboa, that there are plans too, to resettle people and do due compensations, make due compensations available. Do you think, given that many in much of the informal settlements in Lagos and, waterfront settlements, a good chunk of them are from the Ogu, from Badagry, from Togo and stuff like that, West Africa, that people, will call Egon, as we say here. Do you think that there could be an arrangement of a resettlement towards Badagry, which also has a bit of, waterfront, but in a way that it will be win-win for the affected and for the government? And then the second part, so that you can take it together, will be, these things are not limited to Lagos. You have covered far and wide. Yesterday, I was reading about demolitions in Abia, reading about demolitions in Rivers State, in Anambra, practically everywhere. What's your message to government in dealing with this very naughty question?
Fantastic. You've even just the conversation we've had now, we've already proffered a solution.
Yeah.
I would have thought that's the solution that would have come before even informing the community about eviction. The government says that they see that they were encroaching on the power line. And there have been so many reasons for this demolition, I've lost count. It started with the power line, then it's come with, the city plan, then it's come with safety. There have been so many reasons, but I won't go into that. I will just go into, if the government says they want to evict or demolish a section of a place, and you estimate the number of people that will be affected, you should have that data. You should have that data. There's no excuse not to have
data of those who are genuinely, or shall we say legally, resident there.
Yes.
But then there are illegal squatters, as they say.
Well, I would come to the illegal squatter, there are laws around that. If there's a squatter law, if you've been living in a place and acting like the owner of a place for 20, I don't know what Nigeria says, but some countries is 5, 10, 15, 25. It depends. And you've not been challenged. about the ownership of that place, you are assumed
ownership.
it's assumed that you have
Really?
ownership of that place. That is why abroad you see people take over a place and the government will say they've been living there for quite some time. They have that squatters. But let's just even say that this is what the government wanted to do.
Yes.
Not just the Lagos State government, we've mentioned Abia, Port Harcourt.
Yeah.
When you want to evict people from a place, it should be planned so thoroughly with a human face, because you are taking people's shelter from them. Where else? Which community looks like where they can assimilate quickly? We've already said Badagry here. There are people. it's a border town. It's a border town.
Yeah.
A lot of people from across West Africa. That's the town. That's their entry into Nigeria. Even though they've lived decades here. It's a waterfront. There's water in Badagry, like you said. These are fishing communities. Should that have been one of the ideas that should have been suggested in this consultation?
One of the considerations,
in the consultation. And again, in the consultation, you must discuss compensation. And that's resettlement. It must go hand in hand, because I just don't want to go to Badagry where people will say, oh, you don't own this land. And that is what a lot of people in Makoko told me. They also want to own land. They want to have a place where they can build those slave structure and not be under the threat of eviction every time. But if you are being told that you are not Nigerian, you can't buy a piece of land, that's another challenge that they face.
What about those who are actually not Nigerians?
But can we say somebody that has lived in Nigeria for 40 years is not Nigerian? That's another question of citizenship. That's not the conversation we're going to have here.
I mean, the ability to purchase land should not be limited to only Oyinbo expatriates.
Because Chinese people are purchasing land in this country.
But I do want to thank you. I want to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. And I think you're right. We need to bring a human face. We need to bring empathy. It's important, even if there's illegality, we need to be empathetic.
Absolutely.
Especially because of the children.
Yeah. Bukola, thank you so much
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic job you're doing.
Thank you.
And of course, I believe, that the government is listening. The Lagos State government is a listening government. The governor, the commissioner himself.